Hey, Bob here. Friday, the 22nd of May, 2026. Okay, I've almost got my bindings, my routing for the binding, just the binding, not the purfling. I've almost got my binding routed, and I just wanted to show you how this fits. So I'm going to put the binding in the groove here, and I'm going to feel, I don't even have to look, I can feel it with my thumb here that I like the way that fits right there. Okay, it fits perfect. It's slightly proud of the side, but only slightly. I like to keep my bindings as wide as they are when I bend them. And in this case, the bindings are about 2.4 millimeters thick. They're made out of Indian rosewood, dark Indian rosewood. Now, from the waist up to the middle of the upper bout, that's a perfect fit. I already know that when I come around the upper bout, it's a pretty good fit. I'd say perfect. But up here, I have to do some work, and that's all done by hand. Now, below the waist, this always happens, it's slightly more proud than above the waist. So I have to take, what I have to do is I have to be happy with the upper bout from the waist up, because when I change the router to route this a little bit more this way, then I can't go back. I want to just keep going in the direction with the router adjustments to finalize the deal, if you will. So from the waist up, I'm very happy with the depth of the cut this way and the depth of the cut this way. From the waist down, I have to go in a little bit more. How much is a little bit? Maybe a 64th of an inch, less than a 32nd. And this has to do with the curvature of the back and how the router sits on the back. One of the reasons I use a round base is there's less of it sitting on the guitar when I route. So it gives me a fairly accurate cut, but it doesn't give me as accurate a cut as if you did it a different way with the spring-loaded, the router that kind of is on an arm and it kind of goes up and down. And you've all seen that thing that I think Luthier Mercantile and Stu Mac, they make a device that you can attach your router to make like a perfect cut every time. But in the Desmond workshop, I don't have one of those things, nor do I have the room for it. I've always routed by hand. So it's just one of those little things that I put up with. So from the waist down to the lower bout, I have to deepen the cut this way, just a tiny bit. And how do you measure a tiny bit? It's just a tiny little twist of the knob. I take a chance, but I've been doing it long enough where I can feel it and I know how far I have to go. And I'll cut and then I'll fit, see how it fits after I make the next cut. And, as long as I don't go too deep, I like to retain as much of the binding as I can. 2.4, I'd like to retain at least 2.3 millimeters of it. Now, the only reason I don't normally route this deep, you can see the kerfing inside. The sides are just over 2 millimeters thick, but the binding is 2.4. So naturally, I'm going into the kerfing a little bit. But there's plenty below it that is glued and keeps the back in place and so on. Back's not going anywhere. As I mentioned before, the binding is going to be flush It's a flush cut to this bottom inlay. There's no 45-degree miters happening on this guitar. Okay, so after I'm happy with the way the binding fits, then I will start, well, I'll route up here. I won't route. I'll cut and chisel up here so that the binding can go underneath the heel cap and it'll go right into the guitar. And you'll see that later on in the series here. But one of the reasons that I went so deep is because my purfling, if you can see it here, my purfling is almost 2 millimeters thick. It's maple, cranberry veneer, and maple. It's a total of just a hair over 60 thousandths of an inch. So having a thick purfling, I went a little bit deeper because I don't like my bindings too small. I also don't like them too wide, too deep. But in this case, because of the fat purflings, the deep purflings, I decided that I wanted enough rosewood above it, okay? Okay, after I get all the work done and I'm happy with the fit of these bindings, I will take my Gramel, wherever I put it, here it is, Lithium Mercantile and Richard Schneider, the late Richard Schneider, experimental guitar maker. But anyway, they had a collaboration, I guess. And I'll take the Gramel and I'll set it, I'll cut another line for the purfling only. And the purfling is the same as what's on the back and the same that's here. And it's about, like I said, it's about 1.5 millimeters. So I'll find out what this is, and I'll make the adjustment and I'll cut a line slightly less than 1.5 millimeters. The line does two things. It keeps the rosewood from tearing. Sometimes you'll have a weak spot in the rosewood and it'll want to tear as you're routing. Well, it'll stop at the line. So that's one thing the line does. It's not just a line, it's a cut. The other thing the line, so it gives you a visual reference and it gives you a safety margin in case you have a weak spot in the rosewood and it wants to tear out when you're routing. The line, the cut line from the Gramel, it's a very sharp blade there. It gives you that place for the tear to stop, should it. And I always make that line less than the thickness of the purfling, and I'll route little by little until I get it all perfect. And then the purfling, I glue the purflings in separately. That gives me the exactness that I like on a Desmond guitar. And if I do my job right, you will not see where the purfling starts and where it ends. Just a short story about Manuel Velasquez. He used to say to me, "Bob, where does it start and where does it end?" And I said, and I used to show him, and he'd throw his hands up in the air and he says, "I can't even see that." I spend a lot of time trying to get that just right. I don't glue the purflings and I don't glue the back purflings and the bindings at the same time. I glue the purflings in separately so that I only have to deal with them, especially when I'm doing 45 miter joints. The purflings go in separately. After I'm happy with the purflings, I will do a little sanding, whatever I need, and I'll finally glue in the bindings. Okay? So, this may seem very simple to some people, and that's fine, but I remember when I started making guitars, I was always a little freaked out to route the edges and so on. And it's not so bad as long as you don't think about it too much and you just start doing it, but don't take a deep cut. My advice is go little by little. Take a 1 millimeter cut to start, 1 millimeter in. You know, if you're doing a 2¼ millimeter binding thickness, you don't want to cut that all at the same time. You're going to have much better control if you take a little bit off and then take a little bit more off. And, you know, start with your cut not as deep as it's supposed to be, and little by little lower the depth of the cut and lower the depth this way and the depth that way, little by little. That's how I do it. Other people may laugh at me. I don't really care. I do it the way I do it. The way I do it was different from the way Manuel does it. He used to do it all in one, all at the same time. He'd glue the bindings and the purflings. But that's not what I do. And just wanted to show you basically how it's looking. Now, I will sand all of this before I glue the bindings in. But at this moment, it's not that critical to sand it yet because I got to still cut for the purflings. What's critical now is that I get the bindings fit. And honestly, the fitting of it is all done by my feel. Okay, I'm not looking so much anymore. It's really, when I get this close, it's about the feel, what my fingertips are telling me. And my fingertips are telling me that the depth of the cut needs to go deeper this way from the waist all the way around. From this waist probably all the way around, it's just a little tiny bit. Okay, I'll make a very, very slight correction on my router. I'm not going to go deeper this way. I already have established that. I just need to, you know, go a little bit deeper this way. And I'll get to that after lunch. It's just about time to break for lunch. Okay, so that's it. Bob out, and it's Friday. I hope everybody has a great weekend. I live in Orlando, and it's in the low 90s now, so it's pretty brutal outside. This is swimming pool time of year for us, and typically I'll hike early in the morning for an hour plus, and then I'll come home and start working, or if we are going to go to Disney to play or whatever, we'll do that. But if I'm working on guitars, I'm not going to walk that morning. I'm going to get right up, focus in on what I have to do, okay? And this seems so simple, but, you know, it's a critical thing, and you really don't want to F it up, you know? You really want to take your time and do it right. Okay, Bob out.